All right. Why don't we start and kick it off as people are still coming in, but I will open us here and welcome everyone to the Traction Rec webinar. Pretty exciting. We have attendees from across the YMCA movement, our Jewish Community Center, uh, customer group, and many other nonprofits. So very, very exciting to see all the interest. Lots of curiosity, obviously, about AI. And so with that, our goal today is to not just give you a little feed that curiosity, but actually share some stories. And with those stories, share some practical tips about what people can be doing. So we'll go through some introductions in a moment. As you're jumping in, please pop into the chat and let us know where you're joining from, whether that's your association or your center or just your city and location. But I will kick us off with some introductions, who's joining us today, and a little bit of an icebreaker. So AJ Edwards, I'm coming your way first. So AJ is the Community Development Program Director at the Kokomo Family YMCA. So AJ, tell us a little bit about yourself, your why, and then please tell us who is your favorite movie robot?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Like you said, I'm AJ Edwards. I'm with the Kokomo Family YMCA in Kokomo, Indiana. I have been with the Y for 9 years this fall, and I love it. It was an after-school job when I was in high school that I never left, and I just think it's great. I just love everything that we do. And I would say my favorite movie robot is R2D2 because he is loyal, clever, and full of personality, and I think that describes me pretty well.
Pretty good choice. Thanks for joining, AJ. Jorge Perez, President and CEO of the YMCA of Greater Cincinnati. Thanks for joining, Jorge. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your why, and of course, your favorite movie robot.
Um, Jorge Perez with the Cincinnati YMCA. We're a border town YMCA between Kentucky and Ohio, and I've been with the YMCA for about 30 years or so. My favorite robot would be the robot B9. Now uh, it would be interesting to see who knows who robot B9 is. For those of you that remember Lost in Space, it's that robot. Danger, Will Robinson, danger. Uh,
I love it. Thank you for providing the context, especially for myself, Jorge. I didn't know what you're talking about. Also joining us, we have Bryn Anderson, the VP of Product at Traction Rec. Bryn, tell us a little bit about yourself and your favorite robot.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm Bryn Anderson. I'm up in Powell River, British Columbia. I'm the VP of Product, so everything kind of product roadmap and communications around the Traction Rec product. I picked the entire cast of the movie Robots, and this one was a little bit near and dear to my heart because it was one of the last movies that we got to see Robin Williams in. So I really, really loved that movie and him as an actor.
Oh, excellent choice. Thanks, Bryn. And I'll close it off myself, Andrew, and the CRO here at Traction Rec. And I'm going to go closer to AJ's vibe. My favorite is going to be C3PO from Star Wars. I like a goof. So maybe try and channel a bit of that today. So for our agenda in the hour we have, we're hoping to take you through four stories. So first, Jorge will share a little bit of his stories of some of the thought leadership they do out of Cincinnati, just related on AI and the Y movement, but then also some of the practical ways that they're building a community and the use that they have. AJ is going to take us right down to the day-to-day in Kokomo, how they're using a number of tools in their everyday operations. I have a personal story to share a little bit about how I use it for strategy and planning as a leader. And then Bryn is going to take us through some of the newest forms of AI, agentic AI, that are coming not just sort of broadly, but also to the Traction Rec customer base and some of the things that we're doing. I say, and the goal today is that we give everyone a couple takeaways so you can go and try something. So, Jorge, start us off with some big ideas, but also make it tangible for us. Tell us a little bit about sort of Cincinnati, as large as one of the largest Ys. Tell us a little bit where you guys are at in your AI journey right now.
Well, I mean, the AI journey for me is personal. It started literally when I was a kid. I was an early adopter of technology and have been waiting literally for this moment. I mean, I feel like my particular upbringing has watched technology shift and adjust and have gone from telephones on the walls to telephones in your pocket, and have watched technology just continue to advance, and remember thinking, I wonder when we're going to make that leap. And that leap took place about 3 years ago. I was one of the early purchasers of the OpenAI paid version. And so we've been using it around here in Cincinnati for some time. My light bulb moment, I remember watching, like it was yesterday, a Saturday morning show, and they were interviewing somebody who was testing the OpenAI, particularly, I think somebody talking about writing a story like a newsletter or newspaper. And it just was, they give it a couple of prompts, and pretty soon an entire story was created. And I remember thinking, what could this thing do? And so the Cincinnati YMCA immediately kind of started down this path. It started with me and a few of our staff members. We launched about 3 or 4 months after that the AI Collaborative that is now involved with about 70 YMCAs across the country, including 4 in Canada, where we kind of get together and say, hey, here's what's happening in the AI world. And we're testing AI agents that were released about almost a year ago, that can do any number of things, from HR to help us write grants, fundraising, board development, youth development, and so forth and so on, and have been very active in migrating these agents forward. Our anticipation is in the very, very near future, these agents will become more autonomous. Just so that you know, any one of these agents can handle about 150,000 inquiries at the same time. So if you have a youth development question, 150,000 people can ask Yasmin, the youth development advisor, those questions. And so we're testing and retesting these models, these agents across the nation. One way that I talk to folks about how they can really start thinking about integrating AI into their everyday experience is to do exactly that. Start integrating AI in everything you do, whether it's growing tomatoes or mixing cement or how to write the next grant or preparing for your next STEM activity at your in your youth development programs. I think it starts by understanding what it can do. The environment is fast changing. A year ago, prompt engineering was all the rage. And I just attended a conference which someone, a presenter, declared prompt engineering is dead. So less than 9 months later, it was a career, and then it just went away. So I'll put on the chat how you can find out more about the AI Collaborative for those of you that are here with the YMCA, and would be happy to answer any questions. But start by using it every day, and that includes uploading it on your cell phones, smartphones, and have conversations. That's what I said, conversations with your AI on a regular basis.
Wonderful. Thanks for the overview, Jorge. I'm going to back you up a little bit. Just one of the first things you mentioned is, hey, you felt like you're one of the earliest to go and purchase the paid plan from OpenAI. So you're standing out there a bit by yourself. Can you tell us a little bit what gave you the confidence to do that, and what was maybe a little scary about that?
Well, I mean, the confidence is it was $20 a month. What's the big risk here? And I figured I would just do it and see what it was about and see if it was really that good. and it was almost out of the box really good. Now, did it have issues? You've heard all about the hallucinations and challenges, and understood its limitations. It was particularly clunky at the beginning, and it just keeps getting better and better. And now that we can create agents, much like in the same way of creating job descriptions for staff, which is how I recommend individuals using any of the AI platforms, is figure out a way to create an agent. Don't use a simple ChatGPT platform without that. If you're doing something that has a specific meaning, for example, a program for youth. But if you're just looking for advice on a few things, then you're fine to use the system. So I didn't feel alone. I felt like we were really entering another industrial revolution. And there was a part of me that as a leader was motivated because I felt we missed in the nonprofit world the opportunity to really lead in the social media platform, and we lost it. And in the meantime, the world changed under our feet, and kids and families are in trouble, and we can't hardly speak into that space. But we can do that. We can do that here. We can speak into that space right now. And I think it is up to us who serve people to go in early and understand how this platform can shape the thinking of people, the lives that of the individuals that are engaging in the very programs we deliver.
Yeah. Well, well said. And great point. It's $20. What's the risk? And it's month to month. So Jorge, you do that, and then you show up to all your leaders and you say, hey, here's tools for all of you. Go use it. What was their response like? Where were people excited and where did you meet resistance?
There was a lot of hesitations early on for obvious reasons. What does it mean? How good is it? Does it really, really work? And the answer, I mean, what we ended up seeing is that it worked. We started with our national office leaders. You can see on your screen the agents that we released. And by the way, we intentionally gave them names, human names, because that's what's different. If I could give you one other point, the individuals that have joined us, if I can just have you make one leap, is to think about them as your next coworker, to think about them as your next assistant. And that's why when we refer to membership, I'll ask our staff, did you talk to Marlo about that question? Did you consult Harmony on HR issues? And there was a lot of concern early. And we've had to release them slowly again and reintroduce them to individuals. And if you join the AI Collaborative, you'll get access to all of these and you can test them out. All we heard back over and over again was wow, 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 because they can respond to questions. Our HR leader this morning had a significant HR challenge, and I asked her about it, and her comment was, if it weren't for Harmony, I don't know that I could have moved as fast as I did.
Yeah, very. I mean, when you hear that kind of anecdotal feedback from someone like that, that's pretty powerful data points. Jorge, you're making me think too. You mentioned just kind of on speed. You said, hey, like how quickly you're seeing it move in general, and when you started this and to where you are now. What are some examples of where 90 days ago, or 6 months ago, or 12 months ago, you're seeing some of those leaps, and whether it's the technology or kind of the use of it amongst your teams?
I'll start with, I mentioned prompt engineering earlier and how you really had to spend a lot of time talking to it before you finally got the response you get. Now, as you use it, it gets to know you. You have to set up your profile a little bit, and it just knows intuitively what's going on. And ChatGPT in particular added these agents. These weren't there at the beginning. Now they're you can give it pre-work. So I have a couple of agents that I've created to help do some pre-work. So I get an email from one of them every Monday, and it's a leadership guide that I created with my personality profile and our strategic plan. And so I get some guidance every Monday from this agent that says, here's what you ought to be working on this week if you intend to accomplish those goals on your strategic plan. And since then, ChatGPT now can be connected to your files online, including your Google Docs, your emails, and so forth and so on. And it's not going to be long. In fact, I know that they're testing this now before these agents will be self-directed. So just like you hire an assistant to help you do some work and give it a job description, and then he or she reports back from time to time and say, here's what I've done, here's what I'm working on. These agents will be able to do that fairly quickly. And so, if I could offer another warning, there's a lot of AI solutions that are being sold right now, almost on a daily basis. New AIs that can help you write poetry, draft books, sing songs, and so forth and so on. My recommendation is to get ChatGPT, learn how to use that one, and chances are it probably can do one of the things, or some of the things, or a lot of the things that the other AIs can do. So think about it like buying a car. Just get a car, use it, drive it around. If somebody else is going to sell you a car that can go mud hogging and do a few other things with better radio stations and stuff like that, and just give it some time before ChatGPT gives you that option to do it for the same $20.
Awesome. I love it. All right. Jorge's practical takeaway today, go do a test drive. Go do some car shopping for AI, but do test drives. And you see a lot of opportunity that right now, I agree, where it's small commitment plans, whether it's that $20 a month or whatever, to get familiar with it. Jorge, just to close off the AI collaborative, how can people join? How should they reach out to you? I saw you put an email address in the chat. What are you suggesting for individuals?
Send an email to the AI Collaborative at the CincinnatiYMCA.org. Ask some questions. We'll direct you to a link. And you should know there are different levels of engagement. You could just say, you know what, I just want information, access to the agents that I mentioned earlier, and sit down on a couple of Zoominars from time to time to hear what's going on across the country. Or you can go in deep dive and say, I want to contribute to some of the early learning and maybe even be testing some of the AI ideas we're testing. For example, one of the things we're looking at right now is how to AI our cameras. So how could we ChatGPT our cameras to look out for things like child abuse, somebody trying to break into cars, people that are working out. These are early ideas that we're going to need individuals to sit with us and say, let's test it and see how it works, and learn about this. I would tell you everything I've mentioned so far is just in one of the 4 quadrants of AI development, which is AI tools that enhances our capacity to do our job. I haven't even begun to talk about the other 3. That's where you can learn some new things in the AI Collaborative.
No, wonderful. Thanks a bunch, Jorge. Before we go to AJ, I'm gonna ask Holly to put up a quick poll. So we've heard about Jorge and the Cincinnati Y, and they're definitely out front on a lot of AI things, but that isn't the case for all of us. So just to kind of level set a little bit, give us a quick, where is your organization at right now? From nothing started to curiosity, experimentation, scaling up, and maybe fully integrated. So, Jorge, we need you to fill out the survey maybe for that last one to kind of say lead from the front there. But great to get a sense of where organizations are at. When we were at a conference last month, we did a bit of a survey in the room of just, hey, how familiar are you with a tool like ChatGPT? Do you use it in your personal life? Do you use it in your work life? And we saw about sort of 50-60% adoption there. And looks like kind of what we're seeing from the poll a little bit here. Just quick analysis of the results. The majority are in that early stage curiosity, starting to explore, with nearly half of people, more than half, 60% of people just kind of there or below. So early stage is a good one. And so I'm going to then start transitioning over to AJ, because AJ, take us down to a bit more of a operational at the Kokomo Family YMCA. So give us a bit more, maybe a profile of Kokomo, especially compared to a large metro Y like Cincinnati, who is not just large metro, but is also trying to take over two states at once, as Jorge says. But tell us a bit more about Kokomo, sense of the kind of the size of the organization, as we get into some of the things you guys are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm at the Y in Kokomo, Indiana. We have about 175 people on our team across the board at our Y. We have one membership facility, one childcare center, and one day camp property. So it's a really awesome and unique association. Anyone that works for a nonprofit, that from time to time you will wear different hats, sometimes multiple hats at one time. They may not even all fit. But that's kind of how I ended up in our IT area as well. I oversee youth programs at our Y. But back in December, we began a CRM transition, and IT kind of became one of those unofficial hats that I wear. Um, Despite being a smaller Y with fewer, full-time staff, honestly, fewer resources than a larger Y, you have to get creative. And so our team is very creative and we like to experiment with different softwares and solutions. We switch around different things from time to time. Um, Early on, though, our CEO, Trish Severns, was very big on us utilizing AI tools, especially ChatGPT. So that's become a very big thing that we use at RY daily, I would say.
Very cool, AJ. And you kind of preempted one of mine. I was like, how does the director of youth programs start overseeing IT? So I just say everyone's going to wear a lot of hats, things like that. So you got great leadership under Trish and the encouragement. What about for you personally? Do you feel like you had one of those moments where it really kind of it flipped for you?
Yes, I was one of those people that was skeptical about AI. When it first started becoming big, I was thinking of Terminator and the end of the world and all that good stuff with AI. So I would say January or February of this year, I started utilizing ChatGPT. I just gave it a chance. And I was quickly impressed by what it can do. And even since then, how it's improved. For me, the biggest kind of light bulb moment, though, was when I entered in information about our summer day camp program, our traditions, our structure, how we do our groups, ages, things like that, our theme weeks that we have for the 9 weeks of summer. And when it spit out an activity schedule for every day of the summer with supply lists, groups, it organized everything for me in the matter of just a few minutes. I was hooked. It just was absolutely incredible. Something that takes, I would say, weeks to plan for typically. My entire summer was planned for me in a matter of minutes. And ever since then, I've just loved it.
Very cool. Do you mind taking us through some maybe those like fairly specific examples of some of the tools and the ways that you are using it, those different AI options?
Yeah, so I would say RY right now, if I was doing the poll, I would say we are in the actively experimenting section. The two biggest tools that I would say we use literally every single day is ChatGPT, and we use Read AI, the AI note taker for meeting minutes. Those have been two really big things for us. ChatGPT is because we are now paid users too, by the way. We love ChatGPT, but we utilize it to help us be more efficient. I'm really big about saving time and saving money, especially in my work. And so anything that I can do to be more efficient with my time is amazing. We use it to how do we draft this response to this email in a way that is consistent with our values as well as, with enough empathy and kindness and compassion as well as consideration. We use it to uh, assist with writing grant proposals. We use it to assist with writing releases and press releases and things like that out to the media. I've used it for even strategizing our social media for our summer camp social media accounts. I use it for that. Um, but really, it's ChatGPT specifically has been great. I have a lot of ideas. I'm not always the greatest at organizing those ideas. So I can type into ChatGPT what I'm thinking, and it does a really good job of here's the steps you can take, actionable steps to execute that plan. Here's what may or may not work, that kind of thing. The AI note taker, we specifically read AI, but there's other options out there, has been great because it basically attends our meetings. So if you're in person, person who's taking meeting minutes, their laptop dies or something along those lines, and you don't have those meetings minutes from that committee meeting or something like that, you have this option that is not necessarily going to be 100% accurate all the time, but it's going to be pretty close. Or if whoever's taking the meeting minutes missed something, there's a really good chance you can go back to that AI note taker and see what was brought up in the conversation. Odds are you'll find what you missed. So while it's not 100% accurate, it's really, really good at assisting you. It For our work in the small Y, it's not something that's necessarily replacing people, but it's helping support the work that we do, and that's huge for us.
Yeah, important message for sure there in the kind of the people and the tools together. AJ, I'm gonna kind of go back to a couple things you said. So one, when you mentioned the how you're using ChatGPT for creating a lot of output and making yourselves more efficient, you mentioned, hey, we were able to do it in our tone, in our
Mhm.
voice and our values. Can you talk a little bit more about how did you work with a tool like a ChatGPT to not just get it to output sign, but to do it in the way that was consistent with Kokomo Family Y?
Yeah. Um, OpenAI, ChatGPT, it's a very, very intelligent, it's way smarter than I am system. I can type into ChatGPT and the little box says, ask anything, and I can say, can you create a response to this email? This is the subject or the content of our email. Can you respond to this email? Here's how I want it to respond. Can you please do it in the voice of the YMCA? And very likely it will use the terms that we use in our branding. It'll have that welcoming, determined, that nurturing voice. I've even seen it even reference our core values before when I've been testing that out. It's very, very intelligent. And also, when you have an account, I believe Jorge did say this already, it kind of learns how you work, and it does kind of, especially if you have your account and you're logged in, it learns how to make responses or replies in the same manner that you would.
Okay. Yeah. Selfishly, I'm going to talk a little bit about adding context and stuff to those tools and how you work with them later on. But very cool to hear what you guys are doing, and interesting that you could be as broad as I'll say as broad as say it in the voice of the YMCA, and it can how close it can get. Initially,
Mhm.
it sounds like AJ, and then on the note taker, just practically, like, are you using these just in like Zoom kind of virtual meetings? Are you using them in any in-person meetings? What does that
Yeah,
look
we
like?
use it in every single meeting that we have at RY, whether in person or on Zoom. Something that we can do, and maybe this isn't even the most efficient way to do this, but it's the way that we've been doing it at the moment, is we will set up a laptop and have like a Zoom meeting open, and we will
Mm,
use that to record our meeting minutes. Even if, for one of our board meetings, if we have none of our board members or staff members joining virtually, we still have that up and running. So it records our meeting minutes, and we have that as an option to go back and review. So we here at RY, we use it for almost every meeting that we have.
very cool. And how do you handle the when the note taker gets something wrong, and that naturally people go to the see, AI is not that good.
It's at this point in time, it's not 100% foolproof, but it gets really, really close. And so for us, it doesn't replace that person that's in the meeting and taking the minutes, but it helps that person, if they miss something, it's not the end of the world because they can go back to look at that. It's also actually, and I haven't even brought this up yet, but the AI note taker is great because if you're meeting with the same folks repeatedly for the same kind of subject, it'll send you a meeting email highlighting the key points of the previous meeting and what reminders for what you may want to continue discussing in this next meeting. So it's been really good. Again, it doesn't replace the human person, taking minutes or sending out agendas or things like that. It helps to make it easier for us, though.
Yeah, very cool. So if you're in the active experimenting phase, so how do you identify what tools you might use? How do you roll them out? How do you try and encourage adoption? Take us through a little bit of those steps.
It's easier for us being in a smaller Y than it would be a Y the size of Cincinnati because we are such a smaller team. And, here at RY, we see each other constantly day in and day out. So it's easier for us to sit down at a table together and say, we're going to try this or we're going to try that. Um, And not everything is going to work, and that's okay. Because again, we're in that active experiment phase, I would say. So we try different things out. Maybe we like this or we don't like this. I will say we love ChatGPT. Um, but that's what we do. We just see what works and what doesn't work, and we understand that, you know, I think the important thing is mindset. And we had the exact same mindset when we did our CRM transition this spring as well, was just it's not going to be 100% perfect right away. It just won't be. So we have to go into it not expecting perfection. Um, and that's a big help is when you have that open mind, open AI, you have the open mind. That's critical for success for any technology product.
Yeah. Yeah, that speaks to your experimentation philosophy, I think. So that's a good way to look at it. We said we'd save some space at the end for questions. I see two similar ones in the chat that are just a common one. And AJ, curious your take, and Jorge, you may have input a perspective on this as well too. But just the concerns around, hey, we start feeding all this data AI, where's it going? Are we within compliance? Those types of things. So, AJ, maybe as you guys are experimenting, if you're comfortable sharing, how are you ensuring that you guys are feeling confident you're staying within those guardrails?
Yeah, we don't put sensitive or confidential information into ChatGPT. We're not putting our members' names in it. We're not putting their contact information. We're certainly not putting their financial information in it or anything like that. We use it as a way to basically do our work more efficiently. So we aren't using it to replace, and maybe eventually as security improves and more widespread use increases, there probably will be a feature someday where you could, for example, maybe have it do you complete your financial assistance applications in it or something along those lines. We're not there yet, so we're certainly not doing anything sensitive like that at the moment. And I think it's important to just be aware of that and certainly consult, your legal counsel with things like that. But we don't put sensitive or private information in these features at the time. Now, for meeting minutes, if you're having some sort of meeting, possibly with wellness or healthy living that may involve, information that may be protected under, HIPAA, that's something that you probably want to consult with your legal counsel about before having an AI note taker attending those meetings. So we wouldn't have that if we had a sensitive meeting like that. Um, but we use it for basically everything else.
Yeah, and I know in this area too, like for the different solution providers, everyone is moving quickly to stronger and stronger privacy because this is a common concern. Jorge, I don't know if you have anything you'd add there in terms of just kind of compliance related.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, and I talk to CEOs all the time. Let's not try to protect stuff we already don't protect. I was on a Zoominar like this, and they said, I'm trying to protect the donor list. And I went to their website, and the donor list was on the website. So I agree with AJ, no social security numbers and stuff like that. But you know how many of our employees send emails with social security numbers on them anyway? And emails is far less protective than what we're seeing in the LLMs right. So protect the data we need to protect. There are improvements. You should know them. If you're going to use, for example, the Zoom note taker or the Read AI taker or OWL or whatever, you should identify where the protection protocols are and flip them so that you can save or protect the data. But again, we live in a world that data is really hard to protect. If you have a board meeting and it's on Zoom, what's to keep a board member from recording it on his cell phone? The fact of the matter is you send out a PDF to your board on an upcoming meeting. What's to keep that PDF from floating out of the organization? If you're serious about protecting, then you should password protect those PDFs and change those passwords every 6 months. No one's going to do that. And so I just think we have to understand that AI is trying to catch up. I was at a doctor's visit yesterday, and while I was there, the doctor said, you should know I'm using an AI that will be taking notes while we're visiting. And while we were visiting, the doctor prescribed a drug and said, where would you like to be sent? I told her what pharmacy. She didn't take any notes. She said it's already been done. So we're entering a whole different world. You should protect records as best you can. Nothing you want on the internet should be on there, but let's not work so hard to protect information we already don't protect.
Yes, yeah, helpful perspective, or kind of grounding perspective, if you will. I see Jason Dorbelecki's kind of put in the chat as arrow too, is one of the ones that we saw quite quickly. And as you're thinking experimentation, as soon as you kind of move into paid agreement with a lot of the largest or most trusted tools, you have the opportunity to have a lot more data controls, and most specifically turn off any of the data that you provide as a mechanism for training those tools, or being shared more broadly. And as we kind of talked about, some of those commitments are $20 a month to be able to go in and now toggle that off and feel a little bit more confident or comfortable that you're within compliance and sharing what could be perceived as more sensitive information. So,
yeah, all of our agents have been instructed not to train the LLMs. So the data does not move beyond that. Having said that, I still wouldn't put my social security number on. So but they've been trained to do that. And this is why, and the question appeared earlier, this is why using trained agents is another layer of protection, especially as if it's giving you guidance on really important information on how do you take care of kids. We're testing right now a child abuse prevention advisor, for example, that is being trained to give us guidance on how to provide programs that help support kids and families. We've been working with Presidium, our partner in space at the YMCA, and you're just going to get better answers, just like having better answers from a trained employee. If you want better answers, then train the employee, coach the employee, upskill the employee, and the same thing applies here, except now they're AI agents.
Yeah, training and context. AJ, we got a little off topic as we start going down some data compliance. Bring us back around. So if you were going to provide a bit of a practical takeaway for people today, what's one that comes to mind that they could go away and try?
Really give it a try. What's something that you do daily or weekly that you think AI could help you be more efficient at, whether that's writing a weekly member newsletter for your members, a program calendar or newsletter for families in your program, writing, thank you notes, things like that, even though it makes it slightly less personal, things like that, something that you do daily or weekly that you think could save some time with, give it a try. I think you'll be very amazed. I was very skeptical. I think you'll be very amazed at how helpful it really is.
Wonderful. Thanks, AJ. All right. Before I share a bit of my own story, I think Holly has another poll that she's going to quickly pop up there for people. That's just hey, what feels like the obstacles and the blockers? So whether it's to just general getting started experimentation, whether it's to getting buy-in from peers, leaders, reports, whichever, what feels like it's standing in the way the most? This is fun watching the live results. This is all right, we'll give people a couple more minutes as they get in there. Looks like we're starting to see two pretty clear areas coming out there. So staff training and adoption, and ensuring data security. So the not surprising ones to hear. I think, we were at an event where we shared some data that Google had put together recently for nonprofits around generative AI and internal knowledge training. Those things were seen as the number one blocker to adoption. It's just who knows where to help us start, was a lot of the themes coming out of there. And then the data security, I think we saw that clearly in some of the comments in the chat. So maybe a bit of a preview of kind of the next session that we might do like this, just around ideas around policy guidelines, how you encourage appropriate and acceptable use so that you can give people the space to play and be confident they're doing it the right way. All right. Thanks for that poll, Holly. So, I'm going to share a quick story that I shared at the Small Medium YMCA CEO conference a month and a half ago in St. Louis. Great event there. Going to shout out again to that team for what they put on, as they had nearly 150 CEOs from across the movement coming together to share what's happening in their associations. But in particular, just yeah, a little bit of kind of the story similar to what we've heard from Jorge and AJ, where they were at and what they've gone through. I'll share the, even being on the commercial side and at a technology company, I also kind of I'll channel a little bit of AJ here again of the I felt a little bit of the skepticism, and if I'd say more than anything, it's just never really slowed down enough to give it a fair look. And so in the last 6 months, that changed a bit for me. If I had a light bulb moment, and I love using visuals, so I'm going to quickly pop up a couple here. It was being forced to listen to um, a uh, a webinar by a guy named Jeff Woods, that it was promoting kind of his book and ideology and things like that. Not normally the place I'd find myself, but forcing myself to listen to an hour. He presents a really interesting idea, but he starts with this idea of many leaders feel like they need to do something with AI, but they don't know where to start. So that definitely resonated with me and kind of hit home in our own business, and how we serve our customers. But where I really went to this is your opportunity as a leader is to use AI as a thought partner. And I think we've heard some themes of that from both Jorge and AJ today. And I'll kind of touch on a few of the ones, how they've shown up for me. But it was really how could it help you think differently and more strategically. And it treats you as the subject matter expert. You know your organization, you know your sort of team, your operations, what it is, you know it the best out of anyone. And so how do you get AI to sort of acknowledge that and then use that as kind of your superpower to help you think differently as a leader, whatever goals you're trying to accomplish? So in that, I'll share a little bit of the where it started to go was how could you get the AI to interview you as the subject matter expert to draw out that information and that context. And so this is an example of one of the prompts it uses. I think where we're hearing is some of the stuff even going to place where we'll now be training these tools to, you don't even need to prompt them this way. But the one that I'll give you that I found very valuable is giving it the context. So say what you're working on, give it a role that you want it to perform. So almost like that agent that Jorge has been talking about. Get it to ask you a question, one question at a time. Otherwise, it'll hit you with about 9 questions at once, until it has enough information to output something. And then if you can, give it some additional data to work off. So here's a real life example that I had from a little bit ago. I said, hey, we're preparing for a board meeting coming up next week. Here's a copy of our prep notes and our strategic plan. Acting as a strategic advisor, ask me one question at a time to identify any gaps or inconsistencies in our plan. Once you have enough information, create an outline. And so it will go through and it interviews me and it identifies where there's opportunity, and then it produces something much more valuable than if I just said, hey, give me an outline of what our presentation should be. So maybe the themes I'd say we've heard from others that I'll highlight here is really like an emphasis on context. So the more context the AI tools can have, the more intelligent and the more valuable they become. And so context can come from a few different ways. So it can come from asking it to ask you those questions, where you provide your subject matter expertise, and that can come from those prompts of how it knows to do that. It also can come from data. It loves data. So I often attach files or reference websites. So, to AJ's story about the how did they get it in the tone that was consistent for their why, they just referenced YMCA, but that is an opportunity also too where they could be very specific of referencing like, Kokomo YMCA or referencing this recent communication we've sent to members as those tools. It also, whether you're using it just through ChatGPT or using it through the agents, it is a chance to build that memory and knowledge a lot as well too, so that then it remembers it next time, and you don't need to be doing that each time. So that would be kind of my, if I was going to give a takeaway and recommendation, it's somewhat similar to some of the other ones you heard. Find a place to start, but ask the AI how it can help you. So we kind of ran one of these experiments. It says for as part of the SMY conference a few months ago, but it said, "Hey, if you know who I am and I'm a CEO or I lead childcare or whatever it is you do, I'm a membership director. Um, how can you help me?" And you want it to make sure it understands the context. But then it came through and said, "Hey, here's some things we can do." And so, as a fun thing, even for our own teams, as we're rolling this out, they'll be doing the same exercise where they're going to upload some context, and then they're going to get interviewed about their job, and then it'll produce the ways that it thinks it could or couldn't help. And so all of it part of that experimentation as an easy way to get started. We're doing it in environments where, again, like a small commitment to make sure that you're doing it in a data protected way when you're sharing some of that more confidential information, perhaps. Um, but gives people a playground to start experimenting with. And I say the light bulb moment probably was just slowing down enough to actually listen to one or two resources. So those are the ones from me. I'm going to keep moving along to Bryn because we have about 12 minutes left, and if we do want to get to any questions, we got to keep going. So Bryn. Uh, over to you. Can you give us a little bit, maybe start with a bit of the personal and some of that light bulb moment, and then tell us a bit more about some of the stuff we're doing at Traction Rec around our product.
Yeah, sounds great. So my light bulb moment is really like it's a personal one, but it really is kind of the theme of change management. So I've got kind of two personal stories where I saw a real switch in people around me and they're thinking about AI. Similar to AJ, I definitely have some family members where they were thinking this was very Terminator-esque and AI was going to take over the world. It maybe wasn't going in the direction that they wanted to see, but first was my parents. So my parents were very against AI, which is funny because I've spent quite a bit of time in it. So but they got a puppy and they could not figure out for the life of them what to name this puppy. The puppy had been in their home for 2 weeks and they were still struggling. So it's like, hey, let's try ChatGPT and see what it says. So went through a series of different questions and telling ChatGPT about them and what this puppy was like, and ended up landing on Fig. So they now have a puppy named Fig that was a ChatGPT generated name, and they love it. They love the name Fig. It's short, simple, and it works exactly for them. Suits the dog perfectly. And then my other story was my cousins were over and they have a 5-year-old, and their house is on the beach and they have this gnome house that's on the beach. And instead of just telling her a story, I decided to put into ChatGPT that they have a gnome house on the beach. And ChatGPT, with a couple of additional prompts, came back with a very personalized story about their gnome. So now this 5-year-old now has more context about their gnome and has a story to tell her friends about their gnome as well. So it's just my point of telling these two stories is it was meeting them where they were. It was figuring out what's actually going to be something that AI can do that meets them exactly where they are. And it's not really any different within your organizations. If you've got people that are resisting this, it's a lot easier to find use cases that are very, very personal to them and their job, and finding ways that it can actually help them versus scare them. So that's why I wanted to share those two.
I love it, Bryn. Naming is pretty good. I had a baby recently, but maybe I'll just leave it kind of right there. Um, so some more pragmatic approaches, Bryn, of like how you and your team are thinking about specifically agents that we've heard Jorge talk a lot about, an agentic AI. and how that will be kind of digestible for nonprofits.
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of AI tools that are out there, as Jorge and AJ have talked about, that can really tackle kind of those specific use cases and a really like low barrier to entry, especially around generating content. Ones that we use internally are like Scribe, we use for creating training and change management materials that we can like it's a lot of the material that you guys see now in our releases are generated originally from Scribe, which the way I describe Scribe is instead of starting with a blank page, it's starting you in a place that's very editable. So it kind of accelerates that initial building of content and then gets you there. And then we have the podcast. So the podcast that we produce is actually AI generated as well. And again, something that our team then goes and edits before we publish it to our customers. But as far as the actual tools, so we're on Salesforce. Salesforce has Agentforce. We're building tools within Agentforce around program registration. We've got tools around click to cancel, just general searches around what's happening at the YMCA, what time are you open, what temperature is your pool, all of those things that the front desk, your front desk folks answer all the time. These are all things that we're wanting to feed into an agent that maybe takes a little bit more of that already established data that you have on your system, and we're molding it and making it so that these prompts and this chatbot is an Agentforce is able to answer those questions unattended. So that's really where we're going with the Traction Rec product as far as AI and Agentforce.
Very cool, Bren. And so then some like I don't know, examples, practical takeaway, to make space for a little bit of questions. So what do we leave this group with?
Yeah, I mean, the two best entry points we're finding with the organizations that we work with are really generating content. So really using those tools, like I said, Scribe, it's ChatGPT, etc., where somebody can take a step that they do within an overall process and just replace that step or augment that step with one of these AI tools. So an example being like you've heard Jorge and AJ talk about like fundraising with grant applications and different kind of longer text content that you have to produce. Having ChatGPT or some of these other tools be able to produce that first draft that your staff can then yeah, thanks Tiffany. Yeah, we love Scribe as well, but that they can go and edit from. So it really kind of gets over that initial barrier to generating that content. And then the other ones that we see a lot of is summaries that help with decision making. So some of the fun ones that we've seen is for any of the groups that are handling cases. So being able to provide a summary of the most important cases that have come up that week to inform your membership and your programs, organizations or teams so that they can make decisions on how do we continue to make this better. So those are kind of some more entry level areas that we've seen where you don't have to connect a lot of different data. And then you get into kind of the more sophisticated solutions where you need a lot of integrated data in order to make the agents really work. So in those cases, it's where you really are putting out a chatbot or an agent out on your website or onto your community.
Yeah, I think as you're saying that, Brent, I'm thinking one of the really interesting things we're seeing is it gets harder and harder to build an agent for just like one little specific use case because your customers are like, hey, it's the Y, it's the J, it's whoever. I'm going to ask any question I want. And it might be about when the pool's open. It might be about a specific membership type. It might be, if I can cancel a program registration. So there's an interesting kind of thread there where having the platform underneath that can kind of support going across that, it feels like it's going to be an important path.
Yep, absolutely. No, you nailed it.
All right. Thank you to our panelists for sharing all your experiences. We got 5 minutes left. I'm doing my best to scan the chat and try and find a couple
Yeah.
questions.
There's been a couple of questions that came up that I think would be interesting to get AJ and Jorge's take on is so just one of the ones that came up early on was how do you get alignment on tools when there's like Jorge, you touched on this a little bit with just what you've seen at your organization, but alignment on tools where there's a common use case. So the example that came up in the chat is note taking in a meeting. So there are a plethora of tools out there that can do that add AI agents to note taking in a meeting. How did you get your teams aligned on a specific tool that everybody can rely on?
Well, I think it's important, and AJ hinted on this, that if folks are using different tools, that we could quickly say this one, let's just stay with this. Having said that, these tools are becoming extremely, they're like everywhere. Zoom has a note-taking tool that just is free. So you can cancel your other $20 account and just use the one that comes with Zoom. And you can actually activate an AI on Zoom that will listen in and might even ask questions and make comments in the chat. So this is a fast-moving environment. This is why it's important that you at least are aware of what is being used, who's using it. And this is one of the questions in the chat, so that it doesn't get unwieldy for you. I also I over-index on ChatGPT in large part because I call it the Toyota Corolla of the LLMs. They're just easy to use. They're constantly evolving. They're low cost. But I know that there are tons of other LLMs out there that can be used. It's just the one that seems to be easiest at this point. It's the one Microsoft is using to power their Copilot. Although I understand they're not getting along right now, OpenAI and Microsoft. But yeah, I think it's important that you establish some pretty quick standards and say, this is the one we're going to use.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a theme there that we're seeing in the chat as well, just around policies, guidance, like how do you put certain controls in place in your organization so that it doesn't feel as wild, wild west as maybe it was feeling a year ago when people were first adopting AI, just different AI tools. So I think that's very consistent with what we're seeing in the chat as well. Another one that we had from the chat, I think, do we have time for one more question, Andrew, or?
Last question, then we owe it to everyone to wrap up on time. But yeah, what do you think of
Sounds
that,
good.
Brandon?
Just whether you've had any conversations around the environmental impact with your organization and your board around just using AI tools. So that might be one that's coming as far as a topic.
It has come up in conversations I've done with those in the AI collaborative with our board. The vast majority of energy that gets used is primarily in the training of the models. The everyday use is minimal, and I will tell you that there is a race among those that are providing the back systems for agents to make them as efficient as possible. For example, the computer that powers most of the AI work from NVIDIA has improved significantly over time in the last couple of years. So just like any new technology, they're looking for ways to make it cheaper, more efficient, because there's money to be made in that space. I don't know how else to address that, because it's happening, it's going to take place. I'm not sure how you could stop it by not using it.
Yeah.
All right. AJ, any closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, give it a try. Really see, just try something. An email, create survey questions, develop a quick little marketing strategy, just something. Play around with it.
Wonderful. Well said. Thank you again, Jorge and AJ, for joining us and sharing some of the things that you're doing at your Wise. And thank you everyone else for attending. We will share out both the recording and make slides available. I'll apologize in advance if this is a bad joke, AJ and Trish, but I thought I'd leave us with a little tune as an ode to our friends in Kokomo. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks.